Genshin's connections with demonology through the names of the gods has been a pretty fascinating connection stated through the lore, but let's go to the opposite route. So today, welcome to the Angels of Genshin, a dive into the many theories that connect the hierarchy of angels to our beloved gacha game. Disclaimer, these are just theoretical connections and nothing here is indicative of the final product. Also, the vastness of angelology is actually something that I need to preface because the hierarchy is not always found in all religious studies. The hierarchy I'm referring to is from the Christian angelic hierarchy from the book INQURIES de Hierarchia, which is based on Christian texts, but I do want to state that the word angel has a lot of variety that should be respected outside of this video. Alright, let's begin. The thrones is the most obvious connection of angelology to Genshin, especially since they've continuously been referred to in the lore. They've been informally referenced by the Abyss sibling as an obstacle to their goal, stating that they want to topple them, but they've been formally referred to as such in the book Before Sun and Moon. Thrones in angelology look like this, and are also known as Ophanim or Galgalin. They are creatures that function as the actual chariots of God, and are characterized by peace and submission. Thrones are great wheels with many eyes and reside in the area of the cosmos, where material form begins to take shape. They chant glorious, and mete out divine justice and maintain the cosmic harmony of all universal laws. In Genshin, there are two known thrones. Thanos, the one who won against the Dragon Lords of the past and established the human realm, and the second one who came, something that waged war against Thanos and allegedly lost according to the book Before Sun and Moon. This creature is called an invader from beyond the firmament. There is no confirmation if the current throne who rules Celestia is the first or the second, but there's stronger evidence currently with the lore stating that it's the first, because of Ystera's existence and the lack of information about the second. What's fascinating though about the word throne is that Genshin also uses it to refer to the heavenly seats of the gods, as in the divine seats that reside for the 7 higher powers. So if you're going to see the word throne in Genshin lore, just know that it can be used as either the creature's name or the actual seats of God. The next one are the heavenly principles. Now we go on to the more theoretical part of the story. Now here's the thing about them. We don't actually have a complete confirmation if they're the same as the 4 shades of Thanos. The most popular and easier to digest theoretical perspective we have at the moment though is that they are the same. But because of the floating state of these terminologies, we can only wait for confirmation in, let's say, 1 to 3 years. So for today, I'll be respecting the heavenly principles as the 4 shades and Thanos as their master. The word heavenly principles have actually been interchangeable between concept and creature multiple times in the lore. On one hand, they refer to the constants of Devat that act as a law of the land, and are constants that even the archons must abide by. Zhongli, for example, referred to them as the one that bound him by the contract to silence, and the one who steeled him to a fate of erosion. The artifacts from the Pale Flame say foundational principles instead, as though they're fundamental to this world's essence. On the other hand, they're creatures that have been slumbering for 500 years, as referred to by Nahida as something that has yet to be woken up. He also says that Conria's fall was to the heavenly principles, which only makes the title Sustainer of Heavenly Principles all the more fascinating, because it would have been easier to describe her just as a sustainer of the order and law of Devat. But now that the heavenly principles are also creatures, what does it mean for her to sustain them? But regardless of all of that, my theoretical connection to them in angelology is to the lower echelon of angels from the hierarchy known as Principalities. They're the ones with the most humanoid shape, or at least from angel standard, and they serve as the overseers of the realm. Principalities are supposed to guide leaders of nations, governments, religious institutions, and organizations to ensure that the divine's will is done through spiritual leadership. Now, if Celestia is supposed to be the Principalities, we can see their more surface role as being quite connected to them. They do serve as a guiding principle for most of the world through the archons, and while it's not directly, humanity does look up to them for guidance, reverence, or prayer, similar to how our modern-day religion works. The archons also answer to Celestia in one way or another, and while they've been very indirect for the past years, we know that there is still a level of subjugation amongst them regardless of the absence of the heavenly principles. A's Vision Hunt decree, for example, was due to the immense fear she felt for Inazuma becoming like Conria, which makes the visions all the more fascinating of a target for her, because that connects to another theory of the Allergenes, or the people fated to ascend to Celestia, as potential targets for surveillance by the gods. People with the strongest ambition are given the tools and the guidance by the gods themselves to pursue their ideas. Well, in a perfect world, we still don't know what Celestia wants with them, and only time will tell when they'll eventually awaken. But if it actually does turn out that they weren't really connected, then that's a fascinating coincidence, huh? Now we move on to the fascinating theories about Columbina. I can't make a video on angels without discussing the most angelic of characters in all of Genshin. The existence of Columbina has perplexed and mystified a lot of people considering her strange ambience. The fact that Tartaglia is wary of her and Wanderer seems to know something beyond her helpless nature is proof that the Third Harbinger is a beast in and of herself. It also doesn't help that Nahida states she's something that could fight or even surpass divinity. So for this video, I'm going to be covering the theory that Columbina is based off of the notion of a seraph. Now, I know that there's a lot of theories about Columbina being a Seelie, but I'll cover those when I eventually focus on her as a character. Columbina's strongest connection to angels is the mysterious pin that she has in her hair depicting the feathered wings of a seraph. A seraph is a celestial being and is known to be one of the higher, if not the highest, ranking of angels in the hierarchy. They're described to have 6 wings and fly around the throne of God, crying, "Holy, holy, holy." It's a standard hymn in divine liturgies, something that could be connected to the fact that she sings a requiem for La Signora's funeral. If we continue theorizing about Columbina from a seraph perspective though, we can also gauge what kind of fight we'll have with her. Seraphim are known for their radiance, their heat, and holy fire, as the exuberance of their intense, perpetual, tireless ability elevate them into a being that cleanses through an all-consuming fire of radiant energy. If we're going to fight Columbina, it would be horrifying to think that she'd be someone that controls the ether, or the holy light we usually see the Traveler wield. I'd actually find it fascinating considering we've yet to actually properly see that element wielded in combat against or with the Traveler, the other only known consistent practitioner of the light element. It would also be horrifying to think of Columbina as that thing with many eyes that angels are usually depicted as, but knowing Genshin's biblical symbolisms, this isn't completely out of left field for them. We can also connect the lore of the Seelies to the lore of angelology. The Seelie Court mostly has fae derivatives in modern media, as its mythology is from Scottish folklore. The fascinating thing about Seelies is that there's no rule against fae-loving humans, unlike in Genshin's Seelie. Seelie are magnificent creatures that would seek help from humanity and they're amicable to most humans. Fae-human relationships are also not banned most in folklores, as benevolence oftentimes births strong emotions. Which is why instead of looking through the Scottish mythology, I wonder if Genshin's Seelie injected a mix of angel rules into the mix instead. Seelies lose their intelligent form when they fall in love with a human, and when I first heard that in the lore, my first thought was, is this a fallen angel trope? You know, forbidden love between a divine creature and a human births the unfortunate circumstances of life. Now, the concept of the seraphim is way too abstract and almost inhuman for the emotions of love, and there's no strong evidence that angels from a biblical context can fall in love with humans. However, we can look to other sources of potential inspiration for this. The Book of Enoch, for example, is an ancient Hebrew apocalyptic religious text that contains unique material on the origins of fallen angels and demons, and the way the book describes fallen angels bear a fascinating resemblance to how the Seelies are described. In the lore, Seelies are creatures from a bygone race that resided beyond the control of Celestia. They once had beautiful forms and wisdom that they used to guide mankind, traveling alongside them and teaching them languages and philosophies of nature. A certain race, once almighty, has been cursed to degenerate into nothing but these empty husks. Combining that with the Book of Enoch, there's an excerpt from it that has the following notes. The idea of the origin of all evil caused by the fallen angels, who came onto the earth to unite with human women. These fallen angels are considered ultimately responsible for the spread of evil and impurity on the earth. And furthermore, it also discusses the teaching of humans by the fallen angel. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of knowing them, and bracelets and ornaments and the use of antimony and the beautifying of the eyelids and all kinds of costly stones and all coloring tinctures. And those arose from much godlessness, and they committed fornication, and they were led astray and became corrupt in all their ways. This passage potentially combines both the lore of the Seelie, where a disaster fell their way, and the consequences of falling in love with humanity. And of course, because of its inspiration, I'm giving it a bit more leeway in saying that the themes are replicated, but not to the actual one-to-one text, since while fornication with a human is seen as a sin in the Book of Enoch, there's hardly other supporting evidence in media that I could find at the moment, but the Seelie lore does still have a massive chunk in the middle of it, and we've still yet to finish up the pieces on what really happened during the disaster that almost edited Seelies. Now we move on to the Travelers as Seraphim theory. This is also my favorite theoretical connection, considering that the Traveler's true form also bears a 6 wings pattern of the Seraphs, and they do seem to have divine origins considering their divine element. There's nothing much about the Traveler's past though that we can dig up, except that their old world was on the brink of ruin prior to their travel to the Vat in Conria. Your guess is as good as mine, though, on what happened, and a part of me wants to consider that the Traveler takes resemblance to Lucifer, not only because they both have the fallen angel who lost their glory allegories, as well as light-bearing from their names, but also because of their companionship with Paimon. Paimon, the Ars Goetia demon, is after all, the most loyal to Lucifer. Let's end this video in a lighter note. The fantastic lore of Celestia is the mystery behind it that's not only in the game's perspective and lore bits, but also to the very core of its inspiration. The duality of gods having the names of demons, yet also uses the terminologies of angels, just as this level of ambivalence that doesn't really tell you if the gods are to be trusted or not. But that's it for me today. My name is Aster, and thank you for chilling with me. And the way the book describes fallen angels bear a fascinating resemblance to how the Seelies are described. Ay putang ina, am I muted? Oh, go. A certain race, once almighty, has been cursed to degenerate into nothing but these... Fuck!